Hello everyone, welcome. I want to start today to walk you through the journey of the divinity around us, through the journey of how we were able to do the 150 hours of lecture in 10 days. We started on 29th of June 2026 and ended on 8th of July 2026. And it was a 10 days lecture, and in those 10 days we accomplished, by the grace of God, 15 hours every day, and which measured 150 hours, which the videos are still on my Facebook pages and all of that. I saved them there. The divinity around us was birthed out of the quest to go on adventure, the quest for beauty, the quest for life. It was birthed out of the quest for a purpose. Of course, I'm going to walk you through the pains, through some of the pains. I can't explain them because it is not something that words can do. It's not something that words can do. It was something that probably people who were around me at the time would have noticed. But for majority of the case, it was within, and I will try to explain. I will try to talk you through the journey as possible as I can. But there are things I can't really say with words and all of that. By this time last year, by this time last year, I had so many challenges. I had a lot of challenges, and the challenges I had made me to be resentful, made me to be bitter, made me to be angry. I wasn't angry at anybody, I wasn't resentful at anybody, but I was resentful at myself. I was resentful at the fact that I've lost everything I've been working hard for years, and I lost them in the space of 7 months, which was a very terrifying place, a very horrible place to be as a person, and most especially as a young person growing up, right? It was a very horrible place to be. And for months, of course, I stopped working at the time when all of those happened. For months, I wasn't doing anything. I just lay down in my room, and all I could do is to stare at the ceiling and cry. I think I had 2 songs then. I had 2 songs which I was able to memorize. I was able to sing to myself because I couldn't pray. It is not a matter of prayer. Of course, maybe when you ask me then, maybe if you ask me then if I believed in God, I wouldn't have known what to say to you, because it was so obvious that the fall was catastrophical. It was so obvious that the fall was hard. Of course, it's something that I couldn't dispense with. I memorized 2 songs, and one was the malt songs. We said, I will sing, I will sing. Even in my darkest moment, of course. The name of the song is I will sing. And the other one was, I think that one came later. He knows my name. My life is in his hands. Of course, there was these were these 2 songs I had at the time, by this time last year. So I was trying to pull myself off the cliff. I was trying to take my head above the water a bit to see if I can see the daylight, because it was terrifying and horrible at the time. And I wasn't angry at anybody, like I said, I was not, but I was so bitter and angry and resentful at myself and at the things I wasn't able to do, at the things that I had lost at the time. And I had my mom at the time. She came around, and sometimes she comes into my room and she looks at me, she stares at me, and all she could do at the time was to hold my hands and cry with me, because I can't even explain what happened. And when she left, she calls me every day to make sure that I'm still alive. I think she's about the person that felt a bit of what I was feeling at the time when all of those happened. But I found solace in reading. I found great joy and great tranquility in reading. And I've been reading, of course. I've been making research, little bit of research here and there, because I'm working on it anyway. So I've been making a little bit of research, and I found joy doing that, especially when I'm less busy. So I use that to occupy my day. I use thinking to occupy my day at the time. I found solace in reading, and after some months, it was more than 2 months. I was in that abyss for more than 2 months. After some months, I dosed myself again, and one of the things I said to myself was, it's already a risk. Life is already a risk. Why don't you add it an adventure? Why don't you add it beauty? Or why don't you add it something like love? Why don't you do what you love? Why don't you do something that you love so importantly? It's already a risk. So what do you have to lose? You lose nothing. Then I began to listen to Dr. Jordan Peterson. I enrolled in his lectures. I began to listen to him. I began to listen to him on his maps of meaning, on anxiety, depression, and so on. I began to listen to him on mythology, on a mystical myth about the existence of things. I began to listen to him on risk, on meaning. I began to listen to him on making a voluntary sacrifice that you don't wish to get anything from it. I said, fine. And prior before then, I've told my friend Ben, sometime earlier last year, that I want to do something like this. I want to try to give a lecture. It's not about the records. But of course, I checked who made the record last. It was someone, Marvin. I can't remember his name now. Marvin, someone in the Guinness book there. So I sent it to him. I said, bro, I want to try this. I want to do this. You know, it's very fascinating. I want to try this out. I want to see what I can get out from it. He said, yeah, you can do it. I said, okay, I can do it, fine. So what next? I looked at it and I looked at it. I said, no, I can't do this. I can't be able to do it. I can't even wrap my head around speaking for that long. I can't wrap my head around it. I can't do it. So I abandoned the project and I began to work again. I began to do the things I was doing. I began to work. And one of the things that discouraged me again last year was I had no money. And if I'm going to attempt to do a lecture of that sort, I need to stop working. I need to focus on that. And it will make me to... I don't have any money. I said, no, I needed to work to get money first before I do the lecture. But one of the things that occurred to me is, I told myself something very strong. I said, I can always make money. Always. But I cannot always do this lecture. There are times when these graces are given for the lecture. I said, fine, okay. If you cannot always do the lecture, so what will you do? January of 2026, on 23rd of January, I resigned from my job. I said I will go all in. And if whatever happens should happen, I said that I will go all in. And I was reading. I had, there is a library around where I stay. And of course, I go there in the mornings. I go there, I come back in the evenings. They close the library by 4. So I go there, I come back in the evenings. I said, since this can pull me out of mayhem, because of course I was in this place where I needed to dust myself and do something meaningful with my life. Of course, I've lost the money, yeah, but what else do I have? Nothing. I have nothing to lose, so why can't I do it? I just told myself, why can't you try something very extraordinary? Because I've always told myself I don't want to be an ordinary person. So why don't you try something very extraordinary? January of 23rd of January 2026, I resigned. I said, I'm not going to work again. I'm going to find a way out of this. I'm going to, you know, when you hear about the burning bush, you have to pay attention to that which beckons on you. You have to pay attention to that which calls you forth, because that is the only way you can be transformed. And of course, it has been calling me forth, but I've been making excuses why I'm not able to do it. You have to really, really do that, because what can you do? You cannot be transformed without making sacrifices. It is true. The transformation cannot happen. And I so much believe in that, because it's an evidence. I'm an evidence of that. But transformation cannot so much happen if you do not voluntarily confront the dragon that befalls you every day and now. Right? Of course, it's glaring towards me that you need to do this. I resigned. And I was going to the lecture. I was going to the library. I was just reading casually. I was thinking about doing the lecture, but I wasn't thinking about it in a serious sense. I was just trying to find out if I can pass the phase of life I was at the time, and I was trying to find my feet again. I was trying to do the things I love. I was trying to do what I chose to do that I love. I was trying to do it to see if I can skate through the cliff that I was at the time, and it was a very horrifying place for me, because that brought me so low, it brought me so down, it brought me to the point where I began to think about myself as maybe it's not worth it. But here again, it's like a game of chess, right? It's like a game of chess, especially when you feel that you are being attacked at all sides. All you need to do is to be calm. And something, maybe, you just have to pay attention to the burning bush that calls you forth. And when you get to that burning bush, you should be able to know that you have to pull off your sandals and show the sign of humility and shade off your skin. And shade off your skin because I am alive, I need to burn. Of course, I'm alive, I need to burn. And by burning, you burn out things that you burn out resentment, you burn out anger, you burn out malevolence, you burn out mayhem, you burn out your proclivity for chaos. You burn all of those out. And you don't burn them out by not paying attention to the burning bush. And this is me thinking. I said, okay, you have resigned. You have been going to the library. You don't have any money. Why don't you stop going to the library and go back to work and make money? I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to see what this burning bush is calling me forth. I'm going to see the end of it. I began to read. Of course, I had the mind. Of course, the mind was always there that, oh, I needed to do something like this. But I didn't put it in my subconscious, or it was not in my consciousness. But I knew that I love reading. I knew that I love research. I knew that I love the mythical consciousness. I knew that I love something around the mind. I knew that I love something about the human psychology. Of course, I knew I love something like that, and it drives me. It's one of the things that makes me, it's one of the things that keeps me happy, per se. Of course, the happiness is another part. And one of the things that keeps me happy is one of the things that keeps me going. And of course, I looked at myself. I said, you have to do this. But I was doubting myself. I can't do it because it takes a lot. It takes a lot of food change. It takes a lot of diet change. It takes a lot of reset. My entire body needed to reset, man. It takes a lot of sacrifice to be able to constrain yourself, to be able to deliver a 10 days lecture, to be able to deliver a 10 days lecture running for 150 hours. It's mind blowing. And when you are doing it, of course, I didn't go with the mind of having to be recognized. I didn't go with the mind of having to get anything out of it that may be popularity or maybe fame or something. I didn't go with the mind of that. I went with the mind of love, beauty, and adventure. These are the three things I went with. Not with the mind of fame or popularity. That was not my concern. I looked at it. I said, okay, you have to keep trying. So I kept on reading. I kept on making research. I kept on gathering materials. You know, one of the things about our life is our life. It is true that when people say that life is like a puzzle, it is true. You know, I was able to bring the things I've learned, both from my university days and from my secondary school days. I was able to bring the things that I've learned. I was able to be joining them together. And one of the things that I know about myself very importantly is that I remember so much. And it's so tremendous how I remember things so vividly. And I remember things even down to things that happened maybe 15, 20 years ago. It's still very fresh in my mind. And so I use that advantage because, of course, you have to go where you have an advantage. So that is one of the places I have an advantage. I use that advantage to draw in things, to bring in things. Of course, I'm trying to solve a puzzle. I'm trying to compress an idea to form something out of it. I said, so how do I go about it? How do I even go about the lecture? And then within the month, when it was the month of March, I was thinking about it. I said, how do I popularize it? How do I think about, that was towards the ending of March. I said, how do I popularize the lecture? And how do I make people know about the lecture? And what is even the title of the lecture? I think one of the titles I gave the lecture was An Attitude for Gratitude. Because as I was doing that lecture, transformation started setting in. I began to see things differently. I began to understand things differently. I began to see the ray of light that is coming out from what I was doing. I began to see transformation because that is the first thing you will do or you will see when something good is about to unfold. And I believe it so much because the transformation erupted. It erupted within me. I knew it because some of the things I was not able to confront, I began to confront them. Some of the little things I was not able to see, I began to see them. And it was so miraculous and so marvelous that these things were part of the reasons why I I developed within months, man. It was mind-blowing for me. At the time, I was thinking about it. It was mind-blowing. And it's still mind-blowing for me now because there are things I couldn't wrap my head around even up till now. As the days goes on. So one of the things that happened as I was reading is that I nearly lost my eyes, man. I think it was towards the ending of February. I nearly lost my eyes. I was reading so much. I was looking at my laptop screen so much, and I nearly lost it. And one of the days I went to the hospital to do the eye checkup and all of that. I went there, and the doctor said, "You need to stop reading," because I told him what I was doing. Because of course, for you to get healing, you need to be honest and truthful to yourself. So I told the doctor, this is what I've been doing. This is what I said. No, you need to stop for 1 month. And he recommended glasses for me. Of course, I don't like wearing those. He recommended glasses for me, which I took home and I bought and I took and I started wearing them. And I told myself, but the issue of the eyes, my eyes increased, right? I can barely see, but I told myself, if this can lead me to lose my eyes, fine. But subconsciously I was praying that I shouldn't lose the eyes, because if I lose the eyes, I won't be able to do the lectures. But that was what was the extent I was willing to go. If the eyes will be lost for me to achieve this, there's no problems. And that is what is called being tough. You know, when people say that I'm a tough person, I look at it, and one of the things I ask myself is, what have you really done that makes you tough? Or what have you really done that you can say that made you a tough person? I told myself, if it's the eye, no problems, it can go for me to be able to achieve it. But you know, as a human, somewhere there I was still praying that, God, you have to do something to this eye, because I can't open them so well. And I began to use the glasses, and it was a very horrifying moment, because I started being so scared. And I asked myself, if you stop now, what do you gain or what do you lose? It's not about motivation. It's about decision. It's about a choice. It's about you deciding to do what you need to do at a particular point in time, and knowing fully well that whatever circumstances, whatever situations, whatever trouble that comes out of it, you choose your battles willingly. You choose your battles ideally. You choose your battles from a fair play of whatever comes out of it. You should be responsible enough to take whatever it is. I said, fine. If that becomes the case, fine. I continued my reading. I didn't pay attention to the doctors. I continued my reading and all of that. Towards the ending of March, I thought about it. I said, how do I popularize this lecture? How do I make it known? And what is even the name? I said, Attitude for Gratitude. But one of the things, I held myself, not really that I held myself, because I was praying and I was asking the Holy Spirit, I need the clarity of the name to give to this lecture. It was something that was mind-blowing at the time. I needed the name, because the name I gave it was the name I gave it, which is the Attitude for Gratitude. That was the name. That was the theme of the lecture. And I didn't get that clarity until 1st of April. I went, because of course I had my break time. I used to have a break time. I wasn't reading throughout the day, so I had some time that I had my break time. So one of the break times, that was on 1st of April 2026, I went to my sister's factory where she produces her fresh juice, Miss Samuel's fresh juice. I went there, and as I sat there, the place was so quite noisy. As I sat down there, I was discussing with a lady. We were talking about the process and all of that, and the place was quite noisy. And I heard so loud and clear, it's good for you to know God yourself. I've not come to that place yet. I'm still learning. I'm still trying to figure out my life, because that is what we do even till the end of our lives. We don't know ourselves. The meaning of knowing is difficult to know a thing to the fullest. I don't know myself to the end of my life. I sat down there, and as I was discussing, I heard very loud and clear, the theme of the lecture is the divinity around us. You know what I did? Immediately I heard it, because I didn't want to forget it. I was repeating it in my mind. And I left the factory and I was running home. And I was running home in tears. And why was I crying? Because of that song I was singing last year. He knows my name. You know, I was running back to the house. I said, I opened my PC, I opened my laptop, and I cleaned the first topic I had, which was an attitude for gratitude. I wiped it off, and I wrote the divinity around us. And it sunk in immediately that all what I was doing for the last 7 years or so was around that. All what I've been studying, all what I've been reading, all but the dark things I've been reading, because I read something about Unit 1731, I read something about Stalin, I read something about Russia, I read something about Viktor Frankl. I read about Viktor Frankl. Of course, I should not be quick to say it, but I think I do like Carl Jung. I do like Carl Jung, and most importantly, Dr. Jordan, and because he was the person who introduced me to this realm of knowledge. But I didn't get there by mistake. I get there by quest. I got there by quest. Sorry, I didn't get there by mistake. I got there by quest. And by the grace of God, sincerely. And very importantly, you know, one of the things that I should not and I will not omit from this video is to mention the God factor in it. There is always a God factor at every process. Even when I heard that the theme of the lecture is the divinity around us, that was the first time. As I heard it, I said, fine. Now is a license for me to popularize the lecture. I said, okay, fine. So how do I go about it? I chatted my friend up, Winifred. It's been long we spoke. I chatted her up. She said, oh, I was trying to, I thought of reaching out to you, which is the next day. I said, maybe we were thinking together and all of that. So we spoke. I spoke with Winifred, and I told her that is something I want to use, I want to do, I want to tag you on. There is a program I want to tag you, and he said, okay, I hope it's not. I said, I showed her. I said, fine, I can go ahead. Because I think she's about the only person who want to look at me and said, maybe you are crazy, or maybe you are stupid, or maybe you are mad. How are you able to, how do you think you can be able to do 150 hours of lecture in 10 days and survive? I think she was about the only one. And when there was a friend of mine I told about the lecture after the first week of April. I told him about the lecture. He said, won't you run mad? I said, mad? I said, do people who think run mad? I said, I've not seen anyone who is genuinely pursuing what can transform him run mad. I've not seen that. And so we laughed about that. So I told her that this is what I want to do and this is how I want to go about the lecture. I didn't have a holistic view about what I was doing until I made a first post, and that was on Instagram, until I made a first post to announce that I'm going to be attempting the record for the lecture on 150 hours in 10 days, for the longest lecture there has ever been, and I'm going to be attempting it. One of my brothers, out of love, of course, you know, I have a great respect for him, because that thing he did, or his comment on my Instagram post at the time, fueled my determination more. He fueled it more because now I know that in doing this difficult thing, it can either make me or mar me. So I chose to be made from it, right? I chose to be made. So he wrote something beneath the post, and he commented, and the comment was very funny, but it was a comment that maybe is negative, but I really love the comment, because after that comment that day, I was reading, maybe in a day I was reading maybe for 6 hours in a day before, but I tried 8 hours, it worked. And I tried reading, talking, and being conscious at the same time, it worked. That was after the comment, and whenever I'm doing it, I'm always fueled by the comment. At the first initial stage, I was always fueled by the comment I saw on my Instagram post at the time. And I went again. I went 10 hours. I went 12. But the honest truth is, I never did it for 15 hours complete before. I think the highest I went was 13 hours, 50 minutes. That was the highest I went. And I told myself, if you can go 13 hours, 50 minutes, of course, you can go for 15 hours. But I needed to make sure that I was able, you know, this fear that arises from people, that the fear of incompleteness, the fear of, if I don't get it all at the end, I may fail myself at the end, you know that kind of fear. So I had those fears. And one of the things I began to do was to break my body, right? And I won't tell you, but maybe I will say it. Maybe I will say it. I minimized my diet. If you watch my post during the time I was preparing for this lecture, and now you see changes, I minimized my diet. I won't tell you about the diet, but it was, I never thought in my life that someone would do something like that and survive. And I minimized the diet for more than 2 months. I minimized the water intake, right? I became more disciplined. I became more understanding. I was reading something about the Garden of Eden, about the cherubim who stood at the front of the garden with a sword that has flame on it. I said, yeah, because once you are living, you need to be born. You need to born. And that is part of the things that the university tries to communicate to us whenever new students comes in the bonfire night scenario. So whatever living burns. And so if you stop burning, it means that there are a part of you that you don't want to let go. Because what burns from you, or what can burn in you, is not that which is good. Good things don't burn, they transform. But bad things burn, resentment burn, anger burns. I know that. Today I know that anger can burn away. You can burn anger away. You can burn resentment away. You can burn ingratitude away. You can burn malevolence away. You can burn your proclivity for men away. You can burn all of that away. I knew that, and it was so fascinating for me at the time. I began to go on and on and on and on. So one of the days, the man that owns the library called me and said, Vic, are you sick? Is something wrong with you? You are dying. Yeah. You're looking so slim and so lean. You're looking like somebody who is suffering from a sickness. I smiled. I didn't want to tell him really what I was doing. I didn't want to tell him. So after a month of that, I came back to him. I said, I want to use this your place for a lecture. 150 hours of lecture in 10 days. He did like this. It was like, wow. So he said something very important. He said, does it mean that was the reason why you come here every day and close by 6 p.m. every day? I said, yeah. I said, I want to do it. He said, how can you do it? I said, I've done the lecture in my mind already. I just want to display it. I just want to show it off now. I've done the lecture here already. I've really done the lecture here. He said, how? I said, I'm going to use your place for the lecture. I want to rent your conference room for the lecture for 10 days. And we calculated the cost. And when it was time to pay, I paid. Fast forward to first week of June. I felt very ill. I was hospitalized for 7 days. I was in the hospital. And I was in the hospital because I knew the things that brought me to the hospital. I broke myself, right? I broke myself. I knew that. I knew that a lot of things died as the result of the preparation of that lecture. A lot of things went out as just the preparation. It's not about the 10 days. It's the process that bettered the 10 days. That was where the beauty lied. It was the process. It was the pattern. It was the structure. It was the whole brokenness. It was the whole preparation. The whole discipline. The whole you can't do it. The whole are you crazy? The whole you will die. The whole you will run mad. All of those words came from people who meant well. They meant well, but that was for me the fuel that led me to. That was for me part of the fuel that led me to accomplish that. Specifically speaking, all of those fuel made me to accomplish what I accomplished. And like I said, I didn't go there looking for popularity. I didn't go there looking for fame. I went to the lecture with the purpose of adventure, beauty, and love. And I began to learn that you can't lose if you go in anything with these 3 things. You can't lose. You're not losing. You're transforming yourself. And, the journey needs to be Like I said about depression, you need to carry something heavy. You need to carry something heavy enough that you can move. But it should not be light that the journey is meaningless. Till today, there are things that happen during the preparation of that lecture that I can't wrap my head around. I can't really point out and say that, I really understood why this happened. It's something that I need to keep on discovering till the end of my life. Sincerely, it's something that I will keep on rediscovering, because, like I said, I'm the first beneficiary of the lecture. I'm the first person who benefited immensely from the lecture because of the transformation. I knew that it happened. I knew that this thing happened. I knew that my view about life changed. I knew that I needed to toughen up my mind more. When you hear that you're going to run mad for reading, when you hear that you're not going to do it, when you hear that, at some point, when I fell ill, I felt so ill. At that first week of June, I felt so ill that, even on my sick bed, I thought of quitting. I think I was able to reach out to Ben that, I don't think I can continue with this because my health is failing me. But there I said, if this is the end, so be it. That is the kind of mind that lecture brought to me. That whenever you want to go in 100%. If this is the end, that's what I told myself. If this is the end, so be it. One of the days, I spoke to Winifred. One of the days, because she's about the only lady who I can speak to at the time that won't tell me things that other persons may say to me. So I spoke to her. I said, I'm too scared to do this. And that was 2 weeks to the lecture. I said, I'm too scared to do this. I can't really wrap my head around it. I'm so scared to do it. You know what she said to me? She said, I believe you can. Because the truth is, at that point, I wanted to stop. Why I wanted to stop, part of the reason why I wanted to stop was because my head started becoming so hot. So hot. Every part of my body is not hot, but my head, I can feel the temperature is so high. And one of the days, what I tried was that I used an ice. I put an ice on my head and calculated the amount of time it took for that ice to melt. It melted so fast. And I can feel here within my mind, within my head, that the temperature of my head increased by a degree that I haven't seen before. But that was the part of breaking. That was the part of sophistication. That was the part of you making life out of your life. That was the part of reasons why. That was the part of you making the difficult things seems very easy. Because it was so difficult to sit down every day for 15 hours to read. To sit down every day for 15 hours. Because I consciously think for 16 hours every day. Consciously. I'm conscious in my mind. I'm conscious in my thought. And I'm thinking, I'm doing other things. And I'm trying to wrap my head around that. And those things was fascinating for me. I didn't know that I would ever get to the point where I would think rigorously for 16 hours. It was terrifying for me. It was horrible. In my mind, like I was saying to my friend one day, I told her, I don't pray that you should be in my head right now. I don't pray that you should be in my head because you may sink in. And I don't pray that you should be. So as the day goes by, as the day progresses, I told her that this is it. I really want to quit. I'm not sure I'm going to do this anymore. She said, I believe you can. And I trust you can do it. And she wasn't telling me from a place of motivation. She was telling me from the place of how she knew me. I said, okay, fine. I said, fine. Thank you for your encouragement. You don't really know how hard people need these things. You don't really know how hard people need people to tell them that, yeah, you can really pull through out of this. Especially someone who knows you through and through. Not somebody who is advising you from a place of inexperience. Because I told you, like a post I made some days ago about Winifred, right? I drew courage from her own time of despair. Of course, she was part of the people that fueled my understanding about being so tough-minded and being so strong mentally. She may not know it, but I'm saying it because that is true. I spoke to my friend. I spoke to my brother, Dominic. I said, I need you to come around, that we have to do the, of course, I've told Dominic last year, but I ended it because I didn't know, I wasn't sure if I was going to do the lecture. So as the days were approaching, as the time were approaching, I was so still scared. I was scared within me, but I said to myself, life is already a risk. It's already a risk. Why don't you confront it with adventure? Why don't you see what you can make out of it? And that is about the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life. Having to prepare for a lecture, having to talk, having to give a lecture on different things. But I brought in mathematics, I brought in psychology, I brought in philosophy, humanities, sociology, economics. I brought in a lot of things. I brought in history, having to compile those things and dish it out in the way and manner which I did. It's something that I will forever be grateful for. It's something that when I look back, like I said, it's not everything I can put in words. It's something that when I look back, I can look back and say, you did something. You really pushed yourself to the edge, up to the edge of transformation. You really did that. And that made me to see a miracle. That made me see miracles in things. That made me see miracles in people. That made me to understand that it is actually the case that you can be transformed from that which confronts you. It's actually the case that we have to pay attention to the burning bush that calls you forth. It's actually the case that whatever doesn't kill you really will make you. And I enjoyed every beat, like I said. I didn't do it from a place of popularity. No. I did it from a place of love, from a place of beauty and adventure. And every day I wake up in the morning to come and practice, to come and speak to myself, because I speak to myself every day during the preparation of that lecture, plus or minus 18 hours every day. I speak to myself, but I think consciously for 16 hours, because all of those made me to realize the extent I can go, or the extent I can push myself to. And the journey continues.